Kia ora and welcome to the Silly Kiwi Millennial podcast. This is your boy, Scotty Mills from South Auckland, currently residing in Chile with the homie from Stony Hunga, Big Bonds, aka Big Cons, aka the O Swifter Juice in Netherlands. What is crack-lackin'?
What's up? It's summer's on the way, which is really nice. Finally get to wear some shorts again. Really looking forward to that. And it's actually rugby season. It's actually approaching very soon, being a bit warmer, a bit more reasonable to play. And looking forward to it, man. Looking forward to getting out there and enjoying the sun.
I did think about you yesterday because we went with the hockey crew. We went further inland in Chile, and it was as soon as you go a little bit inland, it's just like the weather is just pure extremes. So like in the morning, it's freezing cold, like just freezing cold. It's not even like the heartiest winter just yet. It's coming into winter, and it's you can see snow on the mountains all day. But then as soon as the sun comes out around midday, later about, it's fucking like 25, 30 degrees. And it's like you're getting sunburnt. You can feel getting sunburnt, and it's hot as shit. But then you look up and you can see snow on the mountains. And it's just like, and then at night it just cools down straight away again. It's pretty weird. And I was like, well, at least it's not just freezing cold all day like it is in Europe or the southern tips of New Zealand.
Yeah, man, it's can be a really, the weather can really affect your mood, especially living here. Like winter went past really fast because just inside a lot and just like it's miserable, and I just put my head down, started working a lot, and then as soon as the sun comes out, Dutch people are really good at appreciating it. Like as soon as the sun comes out, all the terraces outside the cafes, everyone's sitting outside, got their sunnies on. Like it's the middle of summer. It's still pretty cold, but the sun's out, and they just really appreciate it, which I think is real cool. And I guess it's it's a cycle. Like we survive the winter, and as soon as the sun comes out and it's a bit warmer, we need to celebrate it. And it's just packed, man. There's no room on the sidewalks because everyone's sitting out on the street, and they love people watching because they're bloody nosy, all the Dutch people. But it's nice to see that it's not taken for granted over here, like good weather. Whereas if you live in a place that's good weather all the time, you sort of, you don't notice, and then you complain about it when it's bad weather. You don't really appreciate the good weather, which is all the time, because it sort of becomes standard. It's just an expectation.
Yeah, that's more what it's like here, because as we've talked about numerous times, it's fairly sunny here most days, and then the last few weeks there's been a bit more rain, and you can definitely feel, and it's like the opposite. So when it's like, oh, today's rainy, so then everyone's indoors, everyone like adjusts to it instead of adjusting to the sun. Everyone adjusts to the rain because everyone's used to it being fairly sunny. I just wanted to know something, and I can't remember. I was wearing shorts the other day, and I was like, do many people wear shorts? That's the thing. Like, I was like, yo, there's not many people wearing shorts here. And it's pretty cold. Like, granted, it was pretty cold. But I'm like, fuck it. Like, I'm a hearty-ass Kiwi dude. Like, we wear shorts regardless. Are you like regardless of whether you're wearing shorts, like, just as a comfort fashion choice, or is your short wearing dependent on the weather?
Yeah, I thought I was, hearty enough to just wear shorts all the time, but the weather here, especially in winter, it's like you just can't. You're just an idiot. Like.
Yeah, well, if it's in the snow,
yeah.
It's slightly ridiculous, but.
But yeah, like around the house, like always shorts, and then as soon as the weather's like, decent enough outside, straight into shorts. I don't know, like, cause you go some places where it's real hot all the time and people still wear pants. Like, is it to like stop getting sunburnt? Yes. Like, sort of you cover up, like even though it's hot and you feel weird, being from New Zealand, like wearing pants, it's kind of the logical thing to do instead of, getting real weird sunburn or something. I don't know. It's, yeah. But for me personally, spend as much time wearing shorts as I can. It's also convenient when you like want to go swimming and stuff, and just wear shorts that are multi-purpose. Do some mean manus.
Multi-purpose shorts.
Yeah, man.
Short gang. Did you get? This was the question I wanted to ask you. Did you get fat like over the winter, just being inside all the time, and like, because you see it all the time, like Kiwis who go to England, and like, just the culture mixed in with the like winter hibernation, people just end up getting fat. Like, did that happen to you? Or were you like really focused on eating clean, staying lean, and just exercising, doing like 1,000 press-ups a day because you can't go inside because you can't go outside and whatnot?
Nah, my metabolism's strong as fuck, man. Nah, but actually, well, you still cycle, like even when it's cold. It's still, if it's pouring down, then you might catch the tram. But because it's free to ride a bike and just so much faster and convenient, you end up riding and cycling a lot. And I don't know, it was probably, yeah, and there's fast food and like, stuff you can buy here, but I just don't feel like it's as common or as like noticeable as like the processed kind of stuff, or especially back home, like when there's a bloody McDonald's and a KFC on the corner of every street next to the liquor store. But yeah, in the Netherlands, especially in Amsterdam, there's so many options, and there's a lot of markets around even during the winter, so we did a lot more like home cooking and real hearty ass stews and stuff over Christmas, keep you warm. I mean, over Christmas, the cold period. But yeah, I didn't really put on weight. It was sort of you're not going out as much, but I guess my body reacted being cold. It didn't use as much energy, so I wasn't as hungry. But yeah, I don't know. I guess it's not a typical case. And I think when you mention the UK, they just get drunk. Like they drink heaps, and I guess it's not really good for the keeping the weight down. But in Europe, especially, in mainland Europe, continental Europe, I guess, they drink often, but not as much as I think we do back in New Zealand. So like binge drinking isn't really a thing here. It's more, drinking to enjoy it or drinking as part of the night out, but the night doesn't revolve around drinking. There might be some, substance abuse, which is more common in the Netherlands or in Europe. But in New Zealand, it's more typical to just get like shit-faced off drinking too much, and that's the way to have a night, rather than, popping something over here and having some drinks along throughout the night, but not revolving around drinking being, the main part of the night.
Interesting. You did raise a few more interesting points there, because it's fairly similar over here, just the lack of like fast food. Like I barely see a McDonald's or a Burger King. I know they exist because I'm going to hit them up and like just try what their McDonald's and Burger King is like, coming from Auckland, New Zealand, quite a fast food connoisseur. So obviously it's not a good thing to have so much fast food in New Zealand, but it's definitely shaped my eating habits. And I definitely consider myself a connoisseur of the burger chain placed around Aotearoa, even the chicken chain, KFC, love a bit of KFC. So I'm eager to try out those outlets in Chile, but it's just harder to find them because they're not on every damn corner, as you said. And those are replaced by more just wholesome outlets, like just family-run, like empanada shops, or like just any sort of food shit that just isn't a big name fast food outlet. Like they're just not as frequent here. And having done, like, we do heaps of traveling with the hockey team, so you're always on a bus. And so I'm becoming quite familiar with the the truck stop sort of place, like on the side of the highway, just the place where you can pick up a munch and be on your way. We stop at those fairly every time we go away for a hockey trip. So last 2 weekends we've been away, and I've had like some, like this, the standard of food at those places is just so much higher than like the petrol station sort of places in New Zealand. Like I'm having like a beautiful burger. I had a sandwich the other day that, and like it's made to order. Like it's just delicious. And then you're getting like, you can get your chips, you can get your salad, you can get whatever you want. It's just like all that food is just of a higher quality compared to New Zealand. Combine that with the lack of, like, there's a lack of McDonald's, Burger King, KFCs on the highway as well. It's kind of like the only things are these truck stop sort of places. So you can't just drive through somewhere. Like there's no drive-throughs. There's like, I've yet to see a drive-through food outlet, which is pretty crazy now that I think about it.
It's not part of it.
There's just no drive-through. Like the McDonald's and the Burger Kings are part of the mall,
Yeah.
so there's no drive-through there. And the truck stops don't have drive-through. They're like, you have to go in and get whatever you want. But like, yeah, like I just...
Is that because there's not a lot of cars there, or?
No, everyone's still got cars.
But if you want to go eat, you go inside and eat.
Yeah, or you just have to make your food. Like people, I think, are a lot more willing to make a food. Make a feed. Like,
oh yeah,
it's make a food. Like late at night, you're going back to the drinking culture in New Zealand. Like your horse days, you can't, like, you have to pick up something on the way home through drive-through. Whereas here, my hunch is that people are more willing to, we'll go home and eat. We'll go prepare something. You know, they're just a bit more prepared generally for consumption of food. And I've just been thinking this whole time, talking about it, and I just can't picture where there is a drive-through here. I literally don't think there's a drive-through in this city. There might be other, obviously bigger cities and whatnot, but coming from Auckland, where every fast food outlet has a drive-through, it's pretty lunatic-ish. Pretty crazy, is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, well, you just made me think about is what's the eating, like, I guess, schedule? Like, when do people typically have dinner? Or like, what time do people get up? And when are the, like, periods of eating for, like, breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Are they different to back home, or?
Yeah, way different. This stuff fascinates me. Like, this is why I love traveling and not being a tourist and like being part of the culture, because I love learning this stuff. And it is very different. Like I think like in New Zealand, dinner is the main meal, which
or breakfast is also.
When you compare it to here, it's lunch, and to a lesser, it goes kind of in terms of like portion size and effort put into creating that meal. It kind of goes lunch, breakfast, dinner. And when you think about it, like if you keep eating food at night before you go to sleep, that's how you get fat. So the eating habits of Kiwis is to have a big dinner. And when you can combine that with all the fast food stuff and all the shit we've been talking about, it's no real surprise that there's obesity, diabetics, that sort of issues in Aotearoa. Like there's fat people here, but there's no obesity epidemic. And sure, there's less fast food, but they're still eating a shitload of carbohydrates. They're still it's not like their diet is just immensely cleaner. Like I could go into details about their diet, which I think play a role. Like there's far more fats, there's far more avocados, olives, and all that sort of stuff, which is fairly similar to like a French diet, where you've got a lot of cheese, a lot of butter. That's all. Like you need those fats, those natural fats, to be a healthy person. But I think like a slept on low key aspect of it is when people are eating, and here it just seems like lunch is the main meal of the day. And obviously you need a fair amount of like coffee after lunch to be able to work. Like I can go like for a while I have lived life like not eating breakfast and eating a smaller lunch just because I have so much more energy. And then you get over here and it's like I'm crazy because I'm not like that to my eating habits, whereas like because I'd start with a lunch and then I'd eat throughout the afternoon and then I'd like peak with a dinner. Whereas here, it's the opposite. So it is pretty crazy, and after daylight savings back in New Zealand, like the sun doesn't come up. It's way more similar to like a European winter. The sun's not coming up until like 8 o'clock in the morning, which is pretty interesting. It's still dark, like when you wake up. Like I wake up super early just to get shit done, but then you look out the window, it's 8 o'clock and it's still dark, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, but then in the height of summer, it's obviously different. And it honestly just depends like what day of the week it is. Like today, we're recording this on a Sunday, and on a Sunday, literally no one is awake before 7 o'clock. And you would struggle to find anyone awake before 8 o'clock. And if you went out on the streets at 10 o'clock, it's a ghost town. Like, life on a Sunday here does not start until 12 o'clock. Like, my kind of shopping routine was to go to the supermarket around like 10 or 11 because it was quieter, and I was like insecure about my Spanish, and I just like, blah, blah, blah. And then, but I have to go to my fruit and veggie shop. I have to wait until 12 o'clock because it doesn't open before then. And it closes at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. So I've got like a 4-hour window on my Sunday to get my fruit and veg from that shop, which I like to go to. So that's it kind of reflects just how everything is shut down on a Sunday. Like nothing happens on a Sunday but they have the balance right because Sunday is family day. Like nothing else happens on a Sunday but being with your family, which in a far bigger, broader context, that kind of community aspect of your life, of being around your family like every week, like having a family dinner in New Zealand, like it should happen way more, but I don't think it does. But the idea of like every Sunday you are relaxing with your family, no matter what. Like just the wiggle room to get around it is far less here. Whereas in New Zealand, it's like, nah, I don't want to fucking hang out with my family on a Sunday. I want to be with my friends. I want to go out and do this. I want to do that. Whereas here, it's just like, nah, you're on lockdown on a Sunday, and everyone loves it, and everyone seems pretty happy, so can't complain with it.
Do they go to church there, or?
Yes. Like I live with Jehovah's Witnesses, which is an interesting living situation for me, just because it's different. There are churches around. Like just a pure example of just how churches have heaps of money. There's a new church centre being built like around a few corners, and it is just like brand spanking new. Like it looks like it's straight out of like the Mediterranean. They've got palm trees along with like Mediterranean like old school like architecture. It's just ludicrous, and like it's only been built recently. You're just like, this like church group just dropped like at least a couple million on the property, on the building.
Jesus.
Yeah, shout out to them. Shout out to God.
Yeah. What an interesting situation. I think a lot of a lot of cultures experience with churches all over the world, especially in like uh, lesser populated places, especially like the islands, like the churches and the ministers. The amount of money that they go through is quite. It's good, but it's sad because there's just a big disproportion. It's the real disproportionate to the people who go to church, and so that's always a frustrating element of that. But when you talked about things being closed on Sunday, it reminded me of Samoa, where like nothing's open on a Sunday. Sunday is God's day, which you know is also good because it ends up becoming family day too. Because after church you have a big feed and everyone gets together, and it's a rest day, and you're not supposed to do anything on Sunday but praise God and spend time with your loved ones, which I think is real cool. And it's funny because my nana used to say to my dad all the time, stop working on Sundays. And then my dad, living in New Zealand and having a busy schedule, and he'd often work on a Sunday, building or something, just so that he could catch up on some time that he didn't have during the week. And he'd always end up injuring himself, whacking his hand with a hammer or something. And he could just hear his mum, my nana, all the time saying, "See, I told you, you don't work on Sunday. That's God's day, This is what happens." And he laughs, and, he doesn't learn. He's probably got better now, but it's just a funny little thing, to listen to my dad tell, some stories, because he didn't, he hasn't always had or like shared a lot of stories with us, but it's definitely one that I remember about about working on Sundays.
Well, that's like, it was an interesting thought, because like when I think back to New Zealand, like we don't like really have that as part of our culture, like as I was saying about the Sunday like shutdown kind of aspect of the culture. But the people in New Zealand who do that are the Polynesians who go to church, like as you said, like you just outlined the example. And like here it's not, it's a weird situation to think of, because here it's not because of the church, it's because of the culture. The culture is to shut down on a Sunday, spend time with your family. Whereas in New Zealand, really the only people who do it because of the church. So it's pretty awesome that the church does offer that. And your story about the islands, like shutting down on a Sunday, is because it is the Lord's day, and so you're meant to. So it's weird just thinking about New Zealand and how the only people who do it in New Zealand do it because of the church. They don't, not for like a good or bad. I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just like observing the Kiwi culture. It just has that, because if you are going to do it in New Zealand, if you're going to shut everything down in New Zealand, like as a family or as just people or as a nation, you would be doing it like just to I think I'm trying to say that you would be doing it like, because the old school European way is that it's the Lord's Day as well. Like that's still a European thing as a Pākehā, but it's a very old school Pākehā thing. You wouldn't be doing it like if a Pākehā family, like if my family were just like Sundays we shut down everything and we don't do anything and we just hang out as a family, chill out. To do that solely as like a culture thing would be kind of ridiculous. Like the only way it would make like sense in a modern Kiwi society is to do it for a religious, sort of idea. Like today's the Lord's Day, we're off to church, then we have a big family lunch, as the Polynesians do. It's just weird how those two ideas of like here, Sunday's shut down because it's just the cultural way of doing things. Whereas in New Zealand, people who shut down on a Sunday do so because it's the Lord's Day, because it's time to go to church. But they still get the same result, like they still spend the whole day with their family. They still have that love, interactions with each other, like that just genuine, wholesome love of being around your family. Like it's still the same end result. They just go about it in two different ways.
Yeah, well, like how long the history of like Europeans has been documented, as opposed to like the Pacific Island cultures, where like the church was as powerful as the state or the king, you know, like the monarch or whatever. And then as Western society has progressed, they've become more secular and moved away from the church. But there's definitely, they moved away in the sense like the power of the church, or like that sort of expectation to go to church, and like you know, to be a law-abiding citizen, you should probably go to church. And as time's progressed and Western society has moved away from the church, like people still go to church and are, you know, devout Christians or whatever, but the influence the church has become less in terms of governing the country. But I think a lot of ideals from the church have still, you know, stayed within society, like the, you know, being together on a Sunday and celebrating family, or, you know, people still get baptized and stuff and go to church and all that. But yeah, it's interesting to see that cultures who aren't so church heavy still end up with the same result, like you said. It's, yeah, I think it's something that Pacific Islanders really held on to, because they're just such a collectivist culture. It's all about sharing. And when you have, you know, a situation like the church where it's about coming together and appreciating, you know, God, and, you know, and having that community aspect, it sort of ties into the collectivist culture of, you know, big communities and everyone coming together, whether for it's a celebration, you know, of God, or of a birth or a wedding, or, you know, just celebration of family. It's, yeah, it's probably why it's still so prevalent in New Zealand for Pacific Islanders, because it ties into the community-based part, which is a real pillar of Pacific Island culture.
I think I've said it before, just how the no lips idea just doesn't exist here. Like in New Zealand, if you share a drink, it's like, don't put your lips on my drink. Like it's like it's kind of ridiculous now, but after being here in Chile, and I've said it before, but I just thought about it again, because you're saying like the like kind of sharing mentality, like we are here to share time with each other, and like if it's yours, it's mine, like everything. And like I think it all ties into what we're saying about the Sunday thing, and just talking about cultural differences and spending time together and coming together as a group. Because it happened to me again yesterday. I was drinking a Powerade, and like one of the girls from hockey like just asked for a drink, and like it's just like there's no, like the whole concept of no lips does not exist. So you just have to get over that. Like there's no second thought of like, ooh, you have germs. It's just like, no, you're sharing your drink. If someone needs water, they're drinking out of your drink bottle. Your water, like literally, your water is their water. And it goes for like the teacher I work with. If she needs water, she's taking your water. Like I've literally never, like even in New Zealand, you would like, it'll be like, oh, can I have a drink? It's like, no, like this is my drink. Like I paid for it. Like get your own drink. Like the whole. Like, how many times have you heard that? Like, nah, get your own. Like in New Zealand, like that's like pretty prevalent. It's like, nah, get your own drink. Nah, get your own pie. Whatever it is. Whereas here, what is yours is mine. Like obviously, like if I meet a stranger, I'm not going to ask him for a drink. But like within those little communities, what is yours is mine, and that like, it shouldn't be weird to me, like because as like someone who likes to think I'm a fairly generous person, like you know, I like to think I'm of that mindset, like those ideas shouldn't be weird. But coming from New Zealand, they are weird because we're not like that. Like it's more of a get your own sort of culture. And if you are going to drink from my drink bottle, don't tarnish my drink bottle. Don't taint my drink bottle with your dirty, filthy lips. Show me some respect. Whereas here, it's just like, no, go ahead, like have a drink, whatever you want. Like it's a beautiful thing. It truly is a beautiful thing. The concept, the idea of what is yours is mine, what is mine is yours, is beautiful. And it's very strange how in New Zealand we, in no way, shape or form do we have that. Like, just like, I'll let you have a go in a jiffy, but to just wrap it up, like, we do have cultures and communities where that is prevalent. Like, we are a generous people in New Zealand. We do give, we do share. But like, I think just the concept of like no lips and sharing a drink is such a simple thing. It's so simple. It's so black and white. It's so like, not tangible. Something else. There's another word I'm looking for. But we just kind of have it wrong. But we think we have it right. We think we're so right. But it's weird. What do you reckon?
Yeah, that's also like in NZ, like it's a Western like medicine, like, you know, bacterial, you know, safety thing. So that's probably how it evolved. And because islanders, or like Māoris and islanders who were always going to share their drink, it was a way for them to keep sharing the drink without having to buy, you know, a cup for everyone. It was a way to just put all our money together, let's buy one big drink because it's better than buying us all our own little drinks and we get less, you know. And, you know, and to defeat the meningococcal monster and stuff like that. The meningococcal is real, but I'm just saying. Like, yeah, it's sort of evolved as, all right, we still want to share drinks, but how can we do it in a way that, you know, we're not gonna, you know, spread our germs, kind of thing. So I thought that, when I think about it like that, it's pretty cool. And the whole sharing thing, it just reminds me of high school, where, like, I knew I had, like, my Palangi friends, and then I had some island friends too. And then I knew if I had a nice lunch, I was going to go eat with the Palangi kids, because they're not going to ask for my food. But if I went to the courts with the islanders, if they see I got some food, they're like, oh bro, can I have some? And then I'm just like, oh yeah, like, you know, I just, even, you know, even though I didn't want to, I would still share it, because like, that's what you do. And, you know, so I would go and eat my nice lunch with my Palangi mates, my Pakia, my white mates, and because they wouldn't ask for food. But then I know if I came with no lunch, and I went to my Palangi friends and asked, oh, you know, have you got some money for lunch, or can I have some of your lunch? They'd be like, oh, nah, you know, this is mine, I wanted to eat it all, like I'm pretty hungry today. Whereas I know if I went to the courts, to the islanders, and like, oh boys, have you got any lunch? I don't have any lunch today, you know. They'd be like, oh yeah bro, even if, you know, they got big appetites, they're growing island boys, they'll still share with me as much as I want, you know. They'd be like, yeah bro, here, have some, you know. And neither way is right or wrong, but it's just, you know, what it is. And it's, so it just reminded me of my experiences at high school. And then, yeah, but then I felt bad, you know, being greedy, like with my nice lunch and eating it by myself, and then trying to scab off the islanders when I didn't have lunch. So, you know, I made sure I'd take them lunch sometimes, you know, like, here boys, I got heaps, you know. And, you know, they'll be, oh yo, and then they'll take as much, you know, they leave me with a little bit. But it didn't matter, because, you know, I know if it ever came around again and I needed some lunch, they'd give me as much as I wanted. So it's a real, like, give and take thing. It's a karma thing. It's a cycle, you know. Aroha is love, and if you give it away, it'll come right back to you. So I guess that was a positive thing I can think about from high school, of me being half caste and being, you know, having a Samoan dad and a majority European mother, which I thought was an identity crisis growing up. Like, I'm not Samoan enough, and I'm not white enough, or New Zealander, European enough. I was never enough of both, when actually, now that I think about it, I was able to be both, you know, not fully both, but still enough of both, where I could walk in and out of each of those worlds and take the best parts of of what I wanted from both of them, which is a really nice way to look at it for a kid, not really sure of where he fitted in.
It's it's weird because like if a kid asks, like the first few times it happened, a kid asked me for a drink from my drink. My initial reaction, my first like gut reaction is like, what the fuck? I'm like, what do I do? I can't say don't, like, no lips, like what? Like, because I was like still stuck in that New Zealand sort of Pākehā mindset, and now it's just like automatic. It's like you just have to, like, you literally have no choice. What are you gonna do? You're gonna say no? You can't say no. Like you gotta get over it and like give it up. And that idea of getting over it, like, because this is something that we've talked about in recent weeks, and it's kind of come to a fore, having started work at the college and having been there for 2 weeks. The idea of ego and recognizing my ego and how it comes into action into my day-to-day life and how it influences my actions. So we have touched on it, but it's just been so prevalent during this 2-week period, and that's like one example. Like when someone asks me for a drink from my drink, it's my ego that is saying, no, what the fuck? And then I recognize that, like, well, who am I to deny people a drink? But my ego is saying, no, you bought this drink, you worked hard for, like, whatever it is. And you just have, like, recognizing the ego. And it's also, like, because it's been pretty crazy. I'm, like, working with, like, groups of children trying to control, like, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-olds by myself in Spanish. Like, so, like, it's been pretty difficult. And you don't get much information. Like, you don't, like, partly because I don't really understand the situation. I don't understand how things work. Like, I'm literally, the way I've thought about it, I've, like, being chucked in the deep end of a pool, and there's, like, sharks in the pool. I just have to, like, figure out so much shit, like, let alone just the specifics of how to work with children in Spanish. There's so much external shit of just how the college works, how the schedule works, how the people work, because another difference is in New Zealand, if you have a training, you show up 10 minutes early. Like, and you, like, hear so many stories, like a couple of teams I've been involved in, like, even in high school, like a first 11 hockey team, we had a rule that if you showed up, for every minute that you showed up late, that was like 1 minute equaled 10 press-ups for the other people to do. So the other people got punished for you being late. And then other sporting teams I've been in, like 15 minutes early for trainings. You warm up before the training starts, and then you get on the turf at the hour mark, and you like, so you've got as much time as possible on the turf. You might as well not even have time here. It just doesn't, it's not important. It doesn't matter if you show up late. It doesn't matter if training starts at 20 past. Like, none of that matters. And so I can't be like angry as a coach, like if the kids are showing up like 10 minutes late, because that's the whole culture. The whole culture is that doesn't matter. Whereas, like, me and my, like, ego, like, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna, like, try change their, like, culture. Like, I'm a big bad coach, so I'm gonna be like, yeah, boys, like, you gotta, like, once we're on this turf, like, we're all in this together, we train hard, like, try implement my shit. But again, that's my ego. Like, I have to adjust my philosophies, my ideas to their culture. Like, I have to, like, release my ego, as well as, like, just not being I guess a soft way of putting it was, like, not receiving much help, but just, like, not receiving much, like, communication, like how to do this, how to do that, bada bing, bada boom. And it's just been a process of, like, recognizing, like, where my ego appears It's like my ego speaks and it says, like, I deserve to be told, like, I should be told this and I should be told that. Like, I didn't get told this and it sucks. Like, why didn't I get told that? Like, I deserve better treatment than that, which is like pretty dramatic, but like you just feel a bit down when you don't like get information or whatever because it's pretty hard. But then you recognize that it's your ego speaking. You're like, fuck, like, later bolt ego, like, just deal with it and do the best that you can and learn. So it's like, I feel like before that, like, we had conversation, we've been in this exact situation talking about the ego. I've told you my whole experience, my whole journey of it, and then the last 2 weeks I've received like a crash course. Like, it's been like a test, I think. It's like, okay, you've been learning about yourself, you've been learning about your ego and your spirituality and being a generally enlightened person. Let's actually see what you've learnt. Like, let's put it to action, let's put it to the test. And it's been like a roller coaster because you like, I've had like a few realizations that like none of that is easy. Like, it's not easy to release your ego because you have to like straight up like deal with yourself. You have to like recognize like when you're being a shit cunt. Like, you have to recognize, and you have to look yourself like figuratively. You have to look yourself in the eyes and be like, did I handle that situation the best that I can? And I don't think many people are like willing to do that, and they're not like willing to assess themselves critically and really suss out like when their ego is controlling situations, because it takes like critical analysis to be able to do that. And it's been pretty like interesting because you react to it. You react to whatever the situation is, and that can influence your emotions or your mood for the next hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, the whole day maybe. And it's not until you sit back and be like, yo, what am I up to? That was my ego controlling that whole situation. I saw how my ego dictated my being for that day. I'm going to learn from it. But for that day or that hour, you're in a shitty mood. You're in a shitty space. So you've got to ride the roller coaster. You got to be in like, I just haven't got the speed of that process down sussed yet. Like, it's still a work in progress, but I'm just so happy that I've been able to put into action what I have learned and try to better myself.
Yeah, man. I think that's exactly, what I've experienced here. It's a lot of self-reflection. And the more often and more critically you can do it, I think the better you are. The better you can make the version of yourself, or like, move towards a version of yourself that you think is the best, And I think that moving away has, been really great for us both, to sort of put ourselves in that deep end and end up with the sharks and just figuring out how to swim, and trusting yourself that you know how to swim, It's like, yeah, I'm in the pool, it's deep, I have to swim, there's sharks around me, but hey, they're not eating me, they're just swimming around me, and no one says I'm dead yet, It's, I've sort of taken that mindset into living here, especially in the last couple of weeks. We were at a place for 6 weeks and then we had to move out. We knew we had to move out, and now we're house sitting for 2 weeks, and we don't actually have a place to move into at the end of that 2 weeks. We're waiting to hear back from some people and got a couple of house viewings and stuff, but we feel a lot better. Me and my girlfriend feel a lot better about the situation than the first time we did this, when we first moved here last year in August, September, last year. And it's weird, it's probably even more dire this time. Like, we have less money and less time to figure it out, but we feel way less stressed. We've sort of conquered that idea that worrying does nothing to help the situation. It's not going to improve our chances of getting a house in a place, and it's not going to put more money in our bank worrying, you know. Only actions and, you know, actually trying to do something is going to improve the situation. And so all of this worrying about, oh, what if we don't have a place and we have to leave, it's gone. The worry's gone. You know, we're not like saying that it doesn't, you know, creep back into our mind, but when it does, we're able to look at ourselves and be like, hey, you need to let it go. It's not gonna, thinking like that's not gonna improve the situation. So work on what you can, and what you can't work on, let it be. And, you know, we can't get rid of the sharks at the end of the pool, but what we can do is swim, and swim our hardest. And until one of those sharks attacks us, we're safe, man. You might as well not be in the pool, you know? There might as well be no sharks around us. And I think that, for me, that's the biggest mental change that I've had since moving abroad, is that release of fear of things that you can't control, and release of the worry of all the what ifs. Because as soon as you're past that moment that you're worrying about, you laugh at yourself and you think, why was I ever worried about that, you know? And then it's much easier in hindsight. But if you can, you know, put yourself beyond where you are now and be like, you know, in a couple of weeks, this isn't even going to matter anymore. It's going to be solved. So all this meaningless worrying about it, it's pointless, man. I mean, you can do it if that's what you want to do and you want to complain and use your energy, but I just feel like there's so many other places that could use the energy and the effort to make something more productive happen for you, yeah, in your future, your very sure. Oh my god, like your very near future. I can't even. Yeah.
I had a absolute situation last week. Fuck. Like I'm working with like children from all ages, and the youngest group, we were standing like in a circle, and like as I said before, like trying to control these kids like is a mission. Like it's, I'm fairly confident that trying like these like teaching hockey in Spanish by myself is probably the hardest thing I've ever done. And so we're all standing in a circle, and this dude is just like swinging his stick around like a fucking helicopter. And the little girl, who I'd spend the whole lesson like chilling with her, like we were passing together while everyone else played games, we were hanging out. The dude just swings the stick right into this girl's forehead. And like I heard the sound. I just heard the sound that it made. And she like I remember everything so vividly. Like she like I heard the sound, and then she like just had this look on her face like surprise. Like not shock, like surprise, like what? And then she put her hand on her on her head, and like saw blood just gushing out. And like there was like a 2 seconds between her getting hit and the blood gushing, like her realizing that she was bleeding. And she was like chill as fuck. Like she didn't even know like what had happened. And then as soon as she saw the blood, it was game over. And like, so she basically just got a hockey stick to her forehead and just got sliced open. And yeah, it was crazy. Her sister was there, and like her sister was like hard out shaken up as well. But like I fucked up, and I like, again, the like critical analysis of yourself, and like I told her sister to like rush like fast, like go to the nurse. And then like I got told afterwards by my teacher, like, stop the class, you got to take her to the nurse, bada bing bada boom, like, and you have to kind of like deal with yourself, like, again, like, did I handle that situation as best as I could? No. So like, how do I do it better next time? I shut the whole class down, I go do it, blah blah blah. But it was just like, in my second week of doing that shit, like in my second week, and like you feel bad because like you didn't control the class, you didn't control the situation, and somehow it ended up with this kid swinging his stick around like a madman, whacking a girl in the face. And it's like, oh, you just feel so shit, like you just feel so bad. And it's like, bro, it was just like, how could this be worse? Like, I'm just in my second week, and I'm just like, obviously it's not your fault. Like, obviously it's not directly related to your actions, but you take it like pretty hard. Like, you're like, a girl just got whacked in the face with a hockey stick on my watch in a different country. Shit the bed. And it was just like, it was just so crazy. It was so crazy. And then like all the teachers were like trying to calm me down. Like, I wasn't like agitated. I was just like, oh fuck, like tranquilo, which is like chill out. But I was just like, oh bro, like what is doing? It did not feel good after that day. I just like felt so bad that this girl had just been hit in the head flush. And like the buzzy thing was like, that morning I had cut my thumb. Like, I was chopping my garlic whatever in the morning. Little prick on my thumb, little bit of blood on my thumb. And then later that day, I grabbed like a bucket to get like the cones or the balls or whatever at the school. And I had another little cut on my thumb. So before that happened, I had 2 little cuts on my thumb with like a bit of blood. Not like blood, but like little, if you get a little prick on your thumb and you get a bit of blood, you just wipe it off and it stops bleeding. And I was like, fuck, that's pretty rats. Like, I've been cut twice on my thumb in the same day. What's doing? Next minute, like, this chick just gets sliced in her forehead. It was like everything kind of like just led up to that moment. I was like, oh no.
You're being warned, bro.
I was. Like, I straight up was. And like, I was like, I was struggling to like control the class. And I could feel that like I was like losing control of the class. And like, so it was like a couple of cuts on my thumb, losing control of the class, and then the class ends with that, and it was just like everything just kind of led into that, and it was just like, oh, what?
It's a tough lesson, but it's like a real, like, I guess, like visual, like tangible one. You're like, shit, this is like a metaphor for like, I mean, not like a metaphor, but like, just showing you what can happen when you lose control of the class, like a full-on like visual representation of like, this is what can happen, and it's a tough way to learn it, but I think it's still a powerful way to learn something, because when something bad happens and then you have like a girl bleeding, like her head's she's been hit in the head, like something vivid that can just stick in your mind, like, I'm gonna prevent this from happening again.
Well, that's where I feel the most like bad for her, because it's like, I definitely took it that way, and I try to learn from it and like assess like how I dealt with the whole like situation, like leading up to it, after it, and I'm like, that's okay, like I can accept that, but this girl had to get hit in the head, like what about her? Like, it's like, it's a lesson for me, like, sure, but why did she have to get hit in the head for that to like unfold? So like, I accept it like for what it is, but it's like bro, like, rats for her, guts for her.
Yeah, you see it all the time happen around the world in news and stuff, or like, stuff with, priests like molesting children or something, or like teachers having sexual relations with kids at school. It's not until, everyone sort of knows it's been going on, and it's not until it's, it's really bad, like a child died, or like, the teacher got pregnant, or it sucks that things in society have to be so bad for people to take notice. It's like, all these kids are dying and getting, shipped off, or like all these kids are getting sold into slavery around the world, or sex trade and stuff. and then it's not until a famous person stands up for it, or like enough people die, or like, you know how no one cares about people getting kidnapped in a country until a famous person's kid gets kidnapped, or the president's, you know, daughter gets kidnapped, and then people are like, oh wow, this is really bad. And it's like, how in society they sort of value lives over others, when really all lives are the same. But you know, if a black kid in America dies, I'm just generalizing here, but you know, like, no, you know, or a black person dies, male dies, then it's not really a big deal. They die all the time. And then, you know, a young white girl dies in a weird, you know, situation, and then everyone's like, oh wow, this is crazy, you know, there's a big news article and all this story and all this background about the potential she had and all this stuff. And that's my problem with, I think, with New Zealand too, where like racism, like Taika Waititi brought up, you know, New Zealand's racist as fuck. And then the argument straight away was, oh, no, we don't have racism, you know, it's not, didn't have slaves, you know, we didn't have, you know, look at the way the Aborigines got treated, the Native Americans, you guys have nothing to complain about. And saying, oh, okay, is racism a scale where, you know, there's an acceptable amount of racism? You know, it's how bad does it need to be before you're willing to step in, you know? Do we need to have a 1981 Springbok tour in New Zealand again? You know, a situation like that for race relations to be acknowledged that they're not perfect, and for something to be done about it. It's too much of this, like, you know, it's not that bad mentality for a lot of things in New Zealand. And that's what really stunts the progress of society, I think. Especially and particularly in New Zealand, that's where I grew up. And, you know, for people to say that things like racism don't exist is a real slap in the face of people who have experienced it. You know, it might not be bad racism or like prejudice, but the fact that another human being was faced with that situation, and the unwillingness by you to believe them, it's ridiculous. And there's no way forward until both sides of the party accept it, you know. And it sucks, man. It's not the society I want to bring my children up in. It's, you know, it's a great place. I love the place, and it's good, and it's a lot better than a lot of countries. But that doesn't mean it can't get better.
Bloody oath. You have your final little slice of wisdom on the back of some emphatic wisdom there to leave our beautiful listeners with?
I think the most important thing in today's society is being able to, like, believe in others. Believe, you know, if someone says something, you know, not to be so cynical all the time. Listen, imagine things from their perspective, walking in their shoes. And if they feel that this is, you know, what they experience, you know, not feel like, if this is what they've experienced, this is what they've experienced. It's not an attack on you. It's not saying it's right or wrong. It's like, this is a fact. If someone says, this happened to me when I walked into the shop, then stop trying to come up with all these excuses and other factors. If someone experienced it, they experienced it. Accept it, acknowledge it, and then we can find a way, you know, a solution, a way forward from the situation. It's when people don't want to believe it, because, you know, no one's attacking you when they say New Zealand's racist. You know, oh, I'm not, you know, I've never been. You guys are just playing the race card and just want more free stuff and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, just listen and acknowledge what they're saying. That's all, you know, that's what a person who's, you know, or most people who suffer, you know, experience racism, they don't want you to be like, they don't want a letter from you saying, I'm sorry for this person, I didn't know who did this thing. They just want you to acknowledge it, acknowledge that it happens, and then we can start having a discussion, because you believe it's real, because it is real. And once you can have the discussion, then we can work together for a solution and build the type of society that, you know, that we want. So I guess what I'm trying to say is believe in other human beings, man. Believe in other people. Basically, really, it comes down to the golden rule, you know. Praise Jesus, praise God. You know, treat others how you want to be treated, you know. If you experience something and you know, want other people to acknowledge your experiences, you need to be able to accept a story that someone else tells you, you know. And that's how we'll move forward.
Booyakasha. Believe in other human beings. Big bonds. Another week. Another 2 weeks. In the life of silly Kiwi millennials. We will be back. Sometime. In the same place, more than likely. Unless you move again.
Maybe.
Hopefully I'll be on the move at some stage soon as well, which is pretty exciting. Pretty keen for a change of scenery, let me put it that way.
Alright. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned, baboon. Sorry, that wasn't meant to be racist.
Cut it, just cut it there.
Stop.